There's nothing left for me of days that used to be. I live in memory among my souvenirs. Some letters tied with blue, a photograph or two. I see a rose from you among...
My name is Irene Alma Clem. I was born June 21st, 1895, where the savings and loan is now, you know. He built the corner store there. When I was 5 years old, we moved away from the store. We moved into the big house that was on the corner. See, that's me. Oh. That's my little dog. And so we moved in there in 1900. We even had a windmill. We're running water in the house. It was the first house that had plumbing. You'll just cry when you think that my sister had that thing torn down and sold it at the gas station.
I'm George Blumeiser. I was born in Niles Center, now known as Skokie, on the 2nd of May, 1898. It's the same day that Dewey took Manila. My father had the store on the corner of Lincoln and Oakland Street. That's Dad's old place. There was the saloon. There was the bank. This I know is Oakland Street. I say this, at one time you could stand down here on the corner of Oakland and Lincoln, shoot a cannon east and not hit anything. Now look at it.
I'm Henry A. Prosel, mayor of Lincolnwood, born in 1893, the World's Fair year.
My grandfather came over here from Germany, Bavaria, in 1841, built a log cabin. The home was right where Gabby Hartnett's bowling alley is today.
I'm John F. Califf, was born in Niles, December 11th, 1897.
I was born on Milwaukee Avenue. It's now 7105 Milwaukee Avenue, just south of Touhy Avenue. But that was an old tavern. My dad started in the tavern business there back in 1895. The present place is the Main Line Restaurant.
My name is Ernest Sonny, and I live in Morton Grove, and I was born in 1907.
I'm Bill Sonny, Ernie's brother, also born in Morton Grove in 1915. Our grandparents moved from Chicago to Morton Grove in 1840. And then they lived on the corner of what is now known as Waukegan and Dempster, an old log cabin. And they bought property out there for $1.25 an acre.
My name is Otto Conti. I was born in 1905. I was born where now stands the 6 Point Cleaners on Dempster and Grosse Point Road. Believe it or not, this used to be our house key. This used to be our lock. Why we had such big keys or locks, I don't know. Our doors were never locked anyway.
The very first settlers out here were English, like John Dews. He bought 400 acres of what is now the Glenview Country Club for 50 cents an acre from the Indians and built his log cabin, and is still standing right in the middle of the golf course. They really worked in those days. Life was hard. They made their living cutting and hauling timber. Eventually, they used some of the logs to build plank roads to Chicago. Chicago was really getting started then, too. This is in 1857. In 1858, Henry Harms built one of the first plank roads to Chicago, a toll road. It's now Lincoln Avenue.
Henry Harms built the first little house on Oakton Street here.
The population here was 95, 96% German and a few Swedish people.
I can speak German because I went to German school. We took as much German as we did English until World War I.
The first school that was built here was built in 1863, down on the corner of Howard and Niles Center Road.
Everybody had to walk to school, walking across the fields and sometime in snow up to their hips and deeper, getting there. You weren't the mother and daddy taking you to school. Certain boys were picked out to get there early so that they could make a fire.
I can remember it like it was just yesterday. Winter was really fun. Oh, if you made any mistakes in school, you got a whipping. But good. Those were the days of the club, the stick.
My father never hit me, but my mother gave me a lot of trimmings. She pounded me around good, but she was a good mother.
They could do practically everything. There wasn't much that these women couldn't do, that they put their shoulder to a job when it had to be done, and they worked at it until it was finished. This was Dr. Clem. This is when she was in nurses training. She was the first woman doctor in Illinois.
She rode around with horse and buggies. That's the way she made her house calls, horse and buggy. Dr. Clem was a good doctor. She was rough. She was like a man. When she said, that's what you do, that's what you do. Oh, fun. My gosh, we had all kinds of fun. Catch crabs, catch frogs. You'd run barefoot until Halloween. We used to go swimming at what they called Pullman's gravel pit. It was like a dump where they dumped different things, and it was the water wasn't too bad. There was a dead horse laying in on one end, but that didn't stop us from swimming. You know, bare naked. That was fun. No bathing suits. As kids, Robert Siegel and I, we roller skated all the way to Elson and Belmont one time.
And picnics, they always had picnics, you know. There are picnic groves.
Clem's Grove is where we used to hold the picnics. That's where the theater is.
It was like a little park with a lot of trees, and of course had a bandstand in it and the bar.
Well, I've got a picture of the first baseball team here in Skokie. They were called the Rosebuds.
Baseball really was a big factor in all these small villages. You see, the rivalry between towns was very intense. To play Niles Center was really a fight to the finish. In fact, they often wound up with a fist fight.
Well, I got my first car when I was about 17 years old. And I believe I paid about $150 for it then. It was used. But it was really something to own an automobile at that time. And when you were 17 years old, you were really somebody to own a car. But we would just cart around night after night, burn up the gas, and just go sightseeing and maybe see if you could see some girls and, hi, honey, you know, pick them up.
But fellas didn't go to girls like you do now in that sense, I don't think. You'd meet the girls at the dance place, maybe you'd pick them up.
Dances were held every Saturday night. One in Lincolnwood at Leo Breeze, and it was called Testville at that time. And the other one here, it was called Alf's, A-L-F. And on Saturday nights, that was the only recreation they had here, and they were packed with the youngsters.
We always got strict orders from home. Now, don't you let anybody get fresh with you, you know, stuff like that. So we all stuck, you know, hung together. We didn't go with boys. There was just a bunch of us girls would go. There was the north side and the south side, and they had what they called their cliques. And if any fella from the south side tried to dance with a girl from the north side, they'd have a fight. They'd start a fight, you know. That was an excuse for a fight. Oh, they fists flew, I'm telling you. Leave our girls alone.
They had beautiful fights here. They were gorgeous. I mean, they just, they knew it before they started. That's what they were looking for. And they got it. This was every Saturday night. Of course, getting to the dance hall was quite a feat in itself. Just dirt roads. And if it rained, you were just out of luck. The farmers used to go down to the Saltwater Street Market to sell their produce. It was a 4 or 5 hour ride with the team, and they'd sleep overnight on the wagon.
The loop was just a mess of trucks and horses. It was quite an adventure to go to town when you're 8 or 9, 10 years old.
I know we always had lunch at the fair store. We just thought that was wonderful. Father, he'd go to the wholesale house and buy for the store, you know. Well, everything a general store would handle, he had it. I remember we paid a nickel for a loaf of bread and 10 cents a dozen for sweet rolls, and they'd always give you an extra one.
My earliest recollection of food prices, my mother sent me over to the meat market practically across the street from our place on Milwaukee Avenue to get 2 pounds of sirloin, and it cost a quarter. I can remember that so vividly.
I do recall that the sugar was 3 to 5 cents a pound, roast beef 15 to 18 cents a pound, cheese, and we used to get the finest cheddar in big blocks and chop off a chunk at about 15 cents a pound.
We never knew what the prices were. We just ate.
We used to have an old movie theater at the corner of Ferris and Capulina, and it actually was a nickel show.
We used to go to the movies on Saturday afternoon. Clara would play the piano. For love scenes, why then she'd turn over and play the violin very softly.
And I remember one time we heard, oh, they're going to take movies. This S&A, Chicago, you know, they used to come out here. They wanted some Wild West movie, you know, and of course the town was just loaded with saloons.
The early westerns were shot here in practically the same area that is now the bank building and the Desiree store, and across the street Clem's had a store there. But I can vividly remember these fellas coming out the night before and setting up their cameras and riding up and down the street.
And this was the inside of my father's saloon. And the men used to play cards here.
My dad's tavern, I filled many a bucket of beer. It was a tin can, fill that bucket for a nickel. Whiskey, you'd fill a pop bottle for a dime.
That was the only pleasure people had. They'd bring their wives, and then their wives would do shopping, and the men would go to the saloon, you know, and lots of them would get drunk too, you know.
Sure, we had Prohibition. That was in 1919, but that didn't stop the drinking. Two of the fanciest places out here were the Dells and the Lincoln Tavern in Morton Grove.
You remember, Doc, when we lived on the corner of Dempster and Austin, across the street from where the Buffalo ice cream is now? We were right between the Dells and the Lincoln Tavern. which is now GI Furniture. I remember on a hot summer's night, we could open up the windows on one side of the house and listen to Guy Lombardo at the Dells. And then go to the other side and hear Duke Ellington at the Lincoln Tavern.
I remember my mother telling us a story about when she was, one evening rather, at the whole sky lit up, and they heard this terrible thump. And back in my grandfather's property, which is in back of the Legion Hall at that time, the meteor made a hole about the size of a foundation. For several acres around it, the ground was so hot that it baked the potatoes right in the ground.
My brother, Fred Sonny, along with Chance Lawson and Dick Betcher, started an airfield in 1919 behind the Dells. They had some old Jennies left over from World War I. The main business was taking up passengers for $10 a head on the weekends. That was quite a thrill in those days. On some Sundays, they'd have an air show. They did some real crazy stunts in those days. Today, no, it's all gone. Closed down about 1933, but that was our airfield.
This is downtown Skokie on July 4th, 1975. More than 70,000 people. Here it is when it was Niles Center in 1924. Only about 1,500 people then. And then the boom came. Seems like real estate offices sprang up everywhere. People had money to burn. Land got as high as $20,000 an acre. Well, you know, that couldn't go on, but things did look pretty good. We put in streets and sewers and subdivided everything. We were ready for a big rush of new people. But of course, in 1929, everything went bust. We had very little new development during the Depression. It just didn't work.
Worked? Well, there really wasn't any work.
Well, then they started the WPA and CWA. We had a barracks here on Harms Road. And we used to live through it.
Prohibition was repealed, and we had 75 places that were selling beer illegal.
Tessville acquired quite a bad reputation. There were a lot of taverns, nothing but taverns, and a few farmers, you know. I'd be introduced to some judge or something, come into the city of Chicago and say, meet the mayor of Tessville. And they'd all kind of sneer, you know, Tessville, well, that's where all the speakeasies are. And I thought, if there's anything in the world that I'm going to do, I'm going to change that damn name. And that's what prompted me in 1935 to change the name.
Niles Center didn't have a good reputation either for the same reason. So in 1940, we changed the name to Skokie. And when the war ended, we had the building boom that we've been waiting for 20 years. This is St. Peter's Church in 1928. Watch the changes that occurred. But the houses and the people came faster than we ever thought it could happen. A lot of things helped. Old Orchard was built in the 50s. The Edens Expressway was built right through the center of Niles Township. Then the Skokie Swift opened. There's 130,000 people in Niles Township now. The whole feeling of a small town is gone. It's like we're just an extension of Chicago. There's been so much change, it's hard to believe. Years ago, I work like a horse. I can't make it anymore. Can't be done. I begin to have to think now what next to say, you know, where it was extemporaneous before, it just flowed and it was easy. It isn't anymore.
There aren't many of us left anymore. She's dead. She's dead. They're all dead. They're all gone.
In my day, there was more love and less money. But today, it's more money and less love.